Okay, so the topic I'm going to talk about today is actually really, I think, fundamental. It's so fundamental, it's almost invisible, but we need to bring it up to the surface again so that we can see it. Now, when we talk about, let's say, a lot of problems that we have, let's say when we have a very difficult partner, or when we have people on our team that are underperforming, or we don't have enough engagement with our community, or whatever our day-to-day problems might be, if you actually distill that, you take that and you try to find, you go deeper, 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 deeper to a root cause, you might actually find, are we actually living our purpose? Which is a really interesting discussion. We talk very much in community management about the mechanics of community management. We talk about projects, updates, these type of things. But how often do we talk about inspiring delight? How often do we talk about positively transforming people, right? When we're not aware of these particular goals that is in our mission and vision, then we're just working here. We're not actually living here. We're not actually living the values and the purpose. So what Douglas does is he focuses on the root thing of where everything begins. He focuses on the purpose and on the vision. And I know that sounds all like abstract and all, but it actually is very concrete. It comes down to how we make decisions. Like when we make a decision, are we actually making a decision based on any core values? How often do we say, if you're stuck, rely on the core values, right? If you're stuck, use the core values to give you some guidance on what to do. That builds trust around where we are. That builds community around not just inside of our company, but outside of our company too as well. So Douglas is a bit of an expert on that. Let me just go through and give some examples so that we can flesh out what Douglas is good at. I went and I spent about 3 hours last night thinking of every deep question I had about community, right? Rafik, welcome. Rafik, we're going to just focus on this discussion about finding purpose for our chapter today, because this is something we generally don't talk about. And as I said earlier, it's almost invisible here. But maybe it's because we don't really think about it. That could be the root cause of why we have so much suffering in terms of our operations. We don't have a core base to go back to when things don't work out the way we want it. We get lost, we get confused because we're like, well, what do we do? So what I'd like you guys to start thinking about is this, right? To be not just effective operational leaders, but to be effective, like upper management leaders. You need to really get this idea of the purpose, the understanding, the vision, the mission around all the work that you do and all the choices that you make. So let me begin the story with this. I spent all last night, about from 10 until 1 a.m., thinking of every single problem we had in community, right? And then I started thinking about every big problem we had in our company. And then I started writing down these questions. And then what I did was I looked at Douglas Atkins, his blog. He wrote a blog on Medium. Where is it? Okay. He wrote a blog on Medium, and it's very extensive. He wrote 7 posts about Airbnb and values and purpose and all this stuff. And I started upgrading my questions from community management questions to company questions to branding questions. And I realized every time I had a question, Douglas already answered it in the blog, right? He already wrote something about what you should do in this particular case. Let me just kind of bring you through like some things that he's written about. So the way to understand this is at a completely different level than the way we've been currently understanding it. When we try to fix something, we try to fix it from the bottom up. Try to find, okay, what's the cause, whatever that. But do we actually think about our values when we try to fix something? Do we really think about, does this actually going to inspire delight for the person experiencing this? And when we don't have that yet, then all we do is mechanical. You're doing it because the SLA is telling you to do it. You're doing it because you're getting instructions from Jing to tell you to do it, right? It doesn't come from within. So what Douglas is asking for is, how do you build a community of people who all believe and they rally around this center idea of common purpose, common values, and common ideas? Now, if you follow me so far, what that creates is a sense of trust, belonging, and it creates autonomy. We don't need to then issue instructions or have such complicated like SLAs, follow the SLA. We can just say, all right, you know what? We believe you share our values. You're going to do the right thing. And then you will want to do the right thing because you know what everybody expects, right? So this is an example of sort of this idea. So here is a problem. At Airbnb, the Attorney General of New York, which is the highest court of land, they issued an order to Airbnb, give me data on your hosts, right? If you don't, then we'll shut you down. Okay? Part one. That's the problem. Airbnb was feeling this threat from their hosts or from the government. So the government was threatening to close them if Airbnb did not share the data to their hosts. So then Airbnb started thinking about what is its core value. We need to be a host to our hosts. We need to protect our hosts. If somebody like the police try to arrest your friend while he's in your house, well, let's hope that you would protect your friend from the police, right? You wouldn't just go like, okay, all right, just take my friend away, right? You would be a host to your hosts. So that became this idea of what values do they actually stand up for? What is their purpose? And does this engagement actually create support or refute their purpose? So plan A is just to do the easy thing. Let's just give them the data so that they will leave us alone and we can carry on with the rest of our business. But plan B is the harder part. Plan B takes more energy, it takes more time, it takes more innovation at the moment, and it's not the easy solution. But what it means is at the end, it creates your culture. It creates the path. It defines those core values that you talk about when we say this is what we value. Okay? So what did they do? They were scared because this is an existential threat. This means that Airbnb could be shut down, right? And they knew that they had to work long hours and weekends to get this thing done, but they wanted to go for it. They said, no, we're going to fight. We're going to resist the government trying to take our records, okay? And what happened is that it was the right thing to do. It was fundamentally the right thing to do. And then this is what is called a meaningful moment, or what we call here a core value recognition at Bukit Vista. So this created this idea of, wow, like you really do care about your hosts, right? This is really being a host, which is one of Airbnb's core values. So you focus on the long term. And that's how we build, let's say, this idea of purpose, okay? Let's go into another thing that they've done. This is about fucking up the culture. So this is pretty inspirational because when Airbnb received their first investment, they received $200 million from their primary investor, Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is the same guy who gave money to Facebook, so he's a smart guy, right? So Peter Thiel, before he gave this money, said one thing: don't fuck up the culture, meaning that the culture was more important than anything else that the investor could identify at Airbnb. That was their primary key. So what is interesting is that culture is, in a lot of places, is just nice to have. It's like, okay, an additional extra something, but it's not the primary priority. And then that is kind of like, this is just sort of like where most people leave it. HR will invest some resources, making this a fun workplace, and the culture will just take care of itself. But it's not true, because culture needs to be built with purpose and values. And that's what actually creates real culture. Do we actually share the same purpose? Do we actually share the same values? Do we actually trust each other to do the right thing? So that's this idea of this culture. But okay, what is culture? It's everything, right? It's how we behave, it's how we relate, it's how we decide what to do. And it's based on these ideas of a shared assumption. Do we share the same assumptions about how somebody else will react? When I think about how Tendy's going to react, do I think, is Tendy going to react the same way that I would to the situation? Would he speak up for Bukit Vista if somebody's talking shit about it? Would Tendy be like, would Tendy see an urgent situation and work really hard to fix it? Would Tendy does he share these core principles with us? So what I'm saying is this, Rafik, that a lot of our primary problems, right? These are operational problems. But if we look at the root, if we look at like the root of where this comes from, we need to ask ourselves, are the people around us actually sharing our culture? Do they actually share our values? Do they actually, do we trust each other, right? Because if we don't have that, then everything is an operational problem. Everything. Delegation is a problem. Engagement is a problem. Everything is, it just doesn't click together because we don't have that fundamental shared culture. Okay, so basically, he talks more about culture, and this was the key moment. Airbnb was growing so quickly, and then Douglas noticed something: the culture is fucked. Okay, he noticed that I've been here for 3 years, and I noticed something is not right with the culture. So he sent an email to the CEO Brian. He said the culture is fucked, and it was they went on and they tried to figure out, okay, what was going on, and then they figured out that there's kind of this feeling around in the room that there's more mercenaries than missionaries here. There's more people who are here for the money but not really care about the mission. There's this really hastiness just to put people into seats without really checking if they actually belong here. So then they look more and they look more and they try to study culture. They try to really understand what actually creates a culture and what makes it work. And they started asking people on a survey, why are you here? You could probably get a better job somewhere else, but why are the two reasons that you're here? Okay? And it came out a lot. Core value, mission, culture. Core value, mission, culture, along with great colleagues and impact. So they know that this is actually resonates really strongly with their internal community. So they got all these answers back from everybody. Okay? And hopefully, Tenny, this gives you some ideas about surveys and what kind of questions to ask in surveys, right? So they started asking, okay, how is the culture made? So they made this balloon, right? They made this balloon and they say, imagine Airbnb's culture is a balloon, okay? And when you blow into the balloon, these are things that improve the culture, okay? And equally, there's leaks that happen and these take away from the culture. So draw your balloon and show me what is it that's improving the culture and what is it that is removing energy from the culture. So they started drawing. They gave it out to all their employees and everyone started drawing. And people would say things like, it's great that we have local offices, we have great people, big ideas, big opportunity, one Airbnb, happy hours. These are inflators. But what take away is a lack of trust, lack of transparency, lack of information, bad managers, leaders or e-staff who just don't get it, people who don't live the values, bad timing, moving too fast, misusing money when the community is not considered, and all these things, right? So everyone started drawing their balloons. And what they did was they got all this information together from different people, and then they started asking, all right, what kind of advice would you give to the founders? What kind of advice would you tell the people who lead this company what to do? So then they started collecting advice to the founders, they started collecting more advice, and then they started seeing that culture is made up of these things. Culture is made up of a mission, right? Why are we here? What are we here to do? And does this mission actually make me feel excited to actually come and work at Airbnb or at Bukit Vista every day? Do we have some values so that we know when we're doing the right thing, even through however uncertain it is? Do the founders really believe in the mission and the values? Do we have people around us who also believe in the values in our mission? And do we actually have really enriching experiences that bring us together and make us feel excited about being at this company? And there was also things that destroy culture. There were leaders who do not live the mission or the values, colleagues who do not live the mission or the values, non-mission and non-values led big decisions that do not reflect the mission and the value of the company. And the core values are good, but they're not good enough. So anyways, they started looking and they started asking, okay, what can we fix? What can we fix? So they decided to bring everybody in from all over the world. They flew everybody in from every office, big event, to talk about culture, just to talk about culture, right? And so anyway, they kept on driving. They tried to understand, and eventually they found out this is what actually culture manifests itself, right? This is how you taste culture. You taste culture because you know that there's some things that are visible and some things that are invisible. So these are the invisible things. These are shared assumptions. These are, like basically what we've been talking about. What are our common values? What are our common things? But the visible aspects are declared differences, right? What is it that somebody can see about you that makes your culture different from somebody else's culture? So then he talks about leaders, physical space. He talks about experience and rituals. What is it that we do at Bukit Vista that's unique? Maybe we have our Friday happy hour. Maybe we have a certain way that we greet each other. We do our own little. We used to have formal Fridays. I remember back in the day. We have birthday parties playing the 2 Chainz song. We have all these little rituals that we do that make Bukit Vista culture what it is. But this is important for building culture. Okay, meaningful moments. Like, what are the moments that really bring the company together? That really create. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I feel emotionally elevated to work at this place. Okay, and that is sort of a diagram of culture. Okay. Now, the next thing okay, living your purpose. Right. Now, this is the next part. Right. This is a very long article, but this answers the core questions: what you should do. So then, if you're really going to live your purpose, then you need it for everything. You need to think about the purpose of Bukit Vista when you recruit, when you review, when you reject, when you do everything what you do. It needs to be tied down to that purpose, right? Tied down to the mission about what gives meaning to what we do. So then use purpose to recruit, review, reject your people. If you bring in people that don't share the same purpose as you, right? Whether it's colleagues, partners, vendors, or whoever else, then you're diluting that purpose. You're taking that purpose and you're making it less important now than whatever the temporary goal is, whether that's financial, whether it's something else. It's not resonating, right? So they start with recruiting. They start with thinking about how to recruit. They also give like the ability. Okay, so goes into recruiting, and then they also think about, all right, if we're going to cooperate with other companies, we need to make sure that they share the same purpose as us. And then if somebody continues working here, we also need to ask, do they actually share the same purpose and the same core values? Now, this is pretty interesting because they actually ended up doing this part I thought was pretty cool. Somebody can do the what very well. Let's say they do the performance, they match their SLA, and they're great. But if they don't do the how very well, they can still get fired, right? So you can still perform, hit your targets all the time, but if you do it in a way that constantly is against the core values, that is constantly against the purpose of what we're trying to do, that is still failure. And I thought that's actually really interesting, right? Because oftentimes when we think of success as in one dimension. You hit the target, you're a winner. But what Douglas says is that it has to be two-dimensional. You have to succeed, but not at the expense of fucking up the culture during the success idea. Okay, I know this is abstract, but this gets down to a lot of things that go wrong here, which is, are we actually succeeding only in one dimension and not thinking about the other dimension? Are we actually living our purpose, right? Okay, so he talks about that, and that is pretty interesting. And he also even talks about customers. Depending upon who you want, it depends on who you want into your company. So Airbnb, before you join, they tell you what the mission is. They tell you the mission. And they tell you that basically, we are asking you to accept the terms of the community. So you will treat everybody, regardless of race, religion, national origin, all that stuff, without judgment or bias, right? And only if you accept will they take you on as a host or actually as a guest. If you do not accept, they don't let you sign on. Simple as that. Now, how much business has that cost them? Well, over 1 million potential customers have been rejected based on that particular purpose, right? So they turned away 1 million people. Now, you could be cynical and say, well, maybe the person just said yes without really feeling like it. But a lot of companies might not even ask the question. They're just like looking to get people in, right? So I'm asking this because a lot of people come to me and they ask, Gene, what do you think, right? What should we do in this particular case? What is your idea? My best answer in the future, after this talk with Douglas Askin, is, do you remember the purpose of our company? And maybe you go, yeah, well, what is the purpose of our company? It's to inspire delight. How? Through hospitality innovation. Why? So that we can positively transform our guests, our partners, and people who work here. I go, great. So what would you suggest we do that encapsulates that mission. And I'll let you guys start making more of those decisions on your own. Okay. The reason why we're doing this, the reason why I'm talking right now, is that I want to make leaders out of everybody here. Okay. And I know leadership is challenging, but I think people enjoy their work more when they're given autonomy, purpose, right? Autonomy, purpose, and mastery. And so, in order to be autonomous, you need to be able to like kind of make decisions about what to do from time to time. I've created the mission and the core values, and we all agree that these are really good ideas, right? The core values are good, the mission is good. So from time to time, practice that, right? Look and just go, hey, I'll come up with something that aligns with the mission. I get what you're trying to say. I'm going to rely on my core values to give me the strength to figure out what to do next, okay? And then once that starts becoming more true, I think then we will stop making so many decisions that are temporary fixes but erode our value and our purpose. And we will enforce this idea that we're all here for the same reason. And that then helps you build a community, gentlemen. Because when people here inside the company believe it, then people outside the company, they will see it and they will understand. That's what Bukit Vista represents. Bukit Vista represents this, but not that. Bukit Vista values this and not that. And I, as a community member joining Bukit Vista as property partner, am attracted to this, but not that. Okay? And it's universal. That's the best part. It's not local. It's not Bali. It's not whatever. It works. It works everywhere because people have values. People like seeing good values. People like seeing good purposes. People support things that they believe in. Protecting the planet, healthy lifestyle. That it doesn't take too much to get people to say, yeah, that's a good idea. I support that idea. Okay. Anyway, so it does mean that from time to time we will need to make more difficult decisions. I will need to make more difficult decisions. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create more sensibility, right? I want you to challenge me when you say that, hey, Jing, I don't think you're living to the purpose of this company. I'll go, why do you think that? You're assuming you're not using data, or you're not being the hero anymore, or whatever. The values give you strength. The mission gives you strength. Anybody can be a leader if we know where we're going, right? It's not just me or whatever, some person who has a more senior ranking than anybody at the moment. It's just based on understanding the purpose and the value. Okay, so I know this is very abstract, but I think it's not. I think it's actually very concrete. If you start doing these parts right, the other things start fixing themselves. Rafik, you had a great question. You asked me, what should we do with people who just don't get it, right? Like people who detract from our mission. So should we tolerate it or should we allow it to happen? Then we need to ask ourselves this question. Can we inspire delight? Can we positively transform this person? If we believe that we cannot, then the answer is pretty clear, right? There's no relation. Yes, over to Rafik.
Yeah, thank you, Jing. So that is question probably exactly is based on the Chris Voss masterclass.
Very good.
If you build a community, it's same like if you going to hospital. So the community manager is the doctor, and the patient is the partner or the guest. So he said like this: how do you know if the patient need antibiotic if the patient didn't tell to you?
Mhm.
That you must know. That is until now. I didn't see the continue yet. Tonight I will show the Christmas again because it's very good. I think it's interesting points. If
Absolutely.
you yeah, if you community manager, if you asking the partner or something will be so you must know it. What exactly the community needed from you? You must know it. It's not only always asking, but you must know it.
Yes.
That is yeah. But if you are only the what is called the small person, you are a nurse, not a doctor. That is Chris Ford says. You always go there. You always go there and asking, how do you feel? How do you feel? But you must be a doctor. You can diagnose and everything, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's a good point. Let's clarify that. Asking questions by itself, Rafik, is not wrong. Asking questions is how we actually get to know our community. If we don't ask, then we're we're assuming, we're not using data. I agree. After asking, we need to be able to persuade. We need to be able to negotiate. We need to be able. People have this dirty notion of persuasion negotiation, like somehow it's like a mind control thing, right? But it's not. It's actually really getting and really understanding the root cause of a problem. For example, I remember a few weeks ago, business intelligence said that partners are offboarding because they don't like the contracts, right? The contracts are expiring, and so basically we're not offering to renew, so the partners leave because of that, right? And so the business intelligence, they said, okay, that's the reason why partners are offboarding, because we're not offering the renewal term. That's not the reason. Wyanna went over, she asked Rhonda, what's the reason you're offboarding? And it came down to the service promised was not the service delivered. I still have to be here all the time. There's no host present, blah, 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 blah. So the service level is not consistent. There's been no communication with me that the service level has changed. But that's funny because like the person who was supposed to look after that said that they had already had a discussion, right? So once again, right? Should we keep this person? Should we not? Should we, does this person inspire delight? Do they stand behind our mission, right? Then it becomes really clear what it is that we need to do in these particular cases, right? When you see this happen, you can say, hey, look, this isn't living to the mission. This isn't living to the purpose. But it's also important, I think, to diagnose correctly, for that matter, Rafik. So what it is that is the underlying issue. Let's not just get the surface explanation. Let's drill down and figure out how to inspire delight. Inspire delight is hard. It's not easy. You have to know what works with each person to be able to delight them. So yeah, be a doctor, diagnose well. Chris Voss is a tactician. He's using tactics to get things done. This discussion is more about strategy, right? Chris Voss is useful because I wanted you to look at Chris Voss's thing about the accusation audit. And that's a tactic that you use an accusation audit to get like a task done successfully. But this is more strategy. This is more like when we don't know what to do, when we're not sure, like what do we do with this person, right? So that gives us some touch points. So let's ask ourselves this question: if the community was sufficiently engaged in our collective purpose, right? If the community does the community even know what our mission is? Do they know what we really want to do? I don't think they do. We don't communicate our mission to our community. And so if we want our community to inspire delight, do we know we expect that to happen? Do we know that they do we screen and ask, hey, do you like inspiring people? Does making guests happy make you happy? Right? And so then when we have these engagement problems later on, it's because our community doesn't know our purpose. Our community is they're just there, they're just passengers. Right? So back to this idea, purpose. Making sure they understand the purpose, making sure that the fundamental is there. I took years to come up with the correct mission statement, right, for Bukit Vista. I took years to really think about that, and I realized why it's so important. Because if you don't say it, if it's not clear, then people don't really know why they're here, and partners might not really know why they're here either. And so that is maybe the first level. We know why we're here. We talk about it. We live it. But do the partners understand it? Do our future employees who want to work here, do they understand why they're here? Do our guests understand why we're here? All right. So this is a fundamental core thing. And if you're scared and it feels a little bit weird, that's good, because we've realized there's kind of like this big hole now that is there. The revelation for me was when I looked at every question I had that was a technical question. I realized Douglas had answered it, but he approached from a completely different direction. He did not approach from, this is how you fix problem A with solution A. He said every problem is fixed using the master solution: purpose, mission, vision, right? Share this, everyone understands why they're here, everything becomes really easy. You don't need to have engagement problems, right? If you do we have when we have a video conference for our partners, does everyone come? But when we have a all hands, everyone does show up. What's the difference? They know why they're here. They know what to expect at the all hands. They know why they're coming to the all hands. Our partners don't yet. But it's okay. It's not too late. Not too late. We have a chance to educate them. Okay? But we need to keep this in mind. All right. So Rafik asked about this question, which is I think pretty good, which is detractors, right? So as much as you try to convey your message, you're going to be bringing in people who are at best they're unwilling to follow, but at worst they undermine the mission and the values. So what should you do, right? Should you be more sympathetic or more strict? I'm going to ask Douglas this, right, to get kind of like some more information about it because sometimes you do need people, right? Or sometimes you do need the property, but maybe they don't completely align with your vision, with your way of service. So what do you do in those cases? They might be a gigantic revenue partner, and it would be a big step backward to lose them. But geez, they just don't get it, do they? So how do you make those choices? Okay. Brand and culture. This is where brand comes from, everyone. When you talk about a brand, when you talk about this, it isn't just a funny logo that appears on like a helmet or like a laptop or something. Brand is built by the things that we do that create these meaningful moments. So it's more than just talk, it's more than just a logo. Brand is built by meaningful moments. Like how did Dose build its brand, Rafik? How do you think Deus built its brand? How do you think Singlefin built its brand? Not sure, yeah? Let's go to Tendi. How do you think Deus and Singlefin built their brand?
by community.
One weekend at a time, one Sunday every week. They would bring everyone together. They would get people to feel connected together. They would have live music. They would not overcharge or rip off their guests. They would bring them together to this beautiful space where they would share energy, music, entertainment, and have this great experience together. One weekend, one day every weekend, they would do that. And that's how they built their brand. That's it. That was simple as that, just by repetition. Is it easy? No, it's hard. How do we build our brand? One check-in at a time. One check-in at a time. One review at a time. Each time to the purpose of what we do. That's how you get it done. That's what brand actually means. I'm happy to say when I go around now and I wear a Bukit Vista shirt, people say, Bukit Vista! And I'm like, great, how do you know about us? Yeah, you're like that huge villa management company, right? I go like, yeah, I'm glad you know about us. Fantastic. Yeah, I applied. You didn't hire me. I was like, I'm sorry about that. But whatever it is, right? So I think that is where the thing comes from. Kiki, let's talk about this. Creating a culture means influencing people to take actions. How do you want people to be influenced? And what does community as a brand ambassador and M&M story mean for you?
For the MOM story, it's actually Andre's idea, which is now, yeah, he's taking the off. But the creating a culture means influencing people to take action is, yeah, it's basically from me. So we've been talk about this, sir. Uh, let's say we have this mission and core values, right?
Yeah.
And we want people to we need people to understand our core values and our mission first.
Mhm.
And if they truly understand it, so the first step is we need to promote our mission and core values, and then after we promote that, we expect people to, let's say, understand or have the same understandings
Mhm.
like us. So in that way, people we influence people to take
Ah,
action.
very good.
You got
Very
what I
good.
mean?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's hard, yeah, as we have discussed before. It's hard to find it's hard to find people that already have the same mission with us. But if we, let's say, if we share our mission or core values, it might affect their, let's say, motivation or
I agree. I
their
agree.
their values, right?
I agree. I agree.
Because people is we are changing by the time. we
Mhm.
can we can persuade other people's motivation. We just need to inject, you know what I mean,
Yep.
inject
Yep.
our values to them. And yeah, the
If I
rest is
if I understand correctly, Kiki's interpretation is we promote, and by through promotion, we are able to influence, and then we inject our values into people, and then they get it right, and then they become our followers, so to speak. That's kind of like the
Yeah.
sequence of it. I believe it's a little bit subtly different, but still let's say here, right? We we sell our mission, we sell our core values, and the people who buy it are the people who we want. That's the idea. So we're offering it out there. Yes, we promote it, we put it on a billboard, we say that this is what Bukit Vista wants to do. We want to inspire delight everywhere, every time, everyone, right? Does this actually inspire you? Does that sound like something that you would like to do? No matter what you are. Maybe you're an economics student. Maybe you're a property owner. Maybe you sell software, right? Does this actually inspire you is this something that has meaning to you? Great. If it has meaning to you, this is our mission. We want to inspire delight through hospitality innovation that positively transforms people. Does that inspire you? Does that give you, if you go to work every day thinking that, does that actually motivate you to come back to work every day? We can't inject it, meaning you can't put in something that isn't there. It just has to be sort of brought out, right? It has to be like, yeah, I get it. I like that idea. That's an idea that I would go for. Ultimately, that's how you build a cult, right? You don't build a cult by forcing people into a room and then, and then this is what you need to believe. This is what you need to believe, right? That doesn't. It sort of needs to be brought out organically from the people who have a tendency to naturally believe it anyway. And from that, that's so you select, you reinforce, you purify, and you create a very concentrated, very potent group of people that have this type of energy. When you get the energy right, it's quite beautiful. When you go into the energy right, you walk into the room and you feel like everybody there is there for the same reason you're there, right? When you look at your community, you don't feel like there's us and them. It's like the same thing. We're all here to do the same thing. This is what we want to do. But the very first step, yes, Kiki, is to announce it. We need to socialize it, right? We need to socialize it. We need to then probably at some point to enforce it. We need to say that this is the reason why we exist. And the people who are here to support that reason are here with us for the same thing. I believe, Rafik, Tendi, most of our bowling owners are really inspired by delighting people, right? I think that gives them a lot of pleasure. I think when they see that guests are happy, they're happy. I think that they enjoy being transformed. I like Pat Raka, right? Started with one idea, another idea. Now he's going to build a lobster thing. So I feel like in our experience with him, he's being transformed. He's going from like a lobster fisherman to like a business person to like a restaurateur to like a hotelier. So he's experiencing all these transformation processes too during this. But we need to make it more visible to him, right? That's what we do. We're here to transform you. We're here to make you a better person. We're here to create this hospitality innovation that transforms you. Okay? And that can be your story, Rafik. That is the story that you sell to new property owners. You don't sell them, I'm going to manage your property, right? That's boring. Anyone can do that. You're going to sell to them, I want to transform you. I want to take you, who you are today, and make you into a person incredibly, that when you look back on yourself 5 years ago with your first property, you go, wow, I've grown a lot. I like the way that I am now. I have a restaurant, I have a second hotel, I have a third guest house, I have all this great stuff. That's kind of like the vision what we want to sell. And that is what gets people to engage with you. That's what gets people to really fall in love with you. You don't need very many because it's not very, it's fragile, right? You need to keep it kind of guarded. You just need enough people who just remain really engaged in the very beginning, right? Let them go and tell their friends. Let them go and whatever. But you need to kind of like reinforce this idea. This is what we do. We positively transform people, positively transform people. And then people come to us not to rent a villa or whatever. They come here because they want to be delighted and transformed. How's that sound, Rafik? What do you think of that? Okay?
It's very good, sir.
Okay.
It's very inspired.
Yeah. And that's the way we need to think about it now. We need to think about how to be
But
inspired. I
but I think
Mhm. Yes, go ahead, please.
uh, yeah, but I think it's the most important in Bukit Vista is how you meet the first time to the people. For example, like you said, like Ronda, for example. Uh, did same like now at Canggu, for example. I make them to what's called extend the contract. Even though they didn't sign, they will still believe to us, and they
Yes,
still everything. So the first expectation must be clear. So that is the most
I
important
agree.
thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. The expectations by Rhonda were set by a different person at a different time. But remember, at the end of the day, community management, you have the relationship with the person. So it's like maybe the first time you met your wife or the first time you met me, maybe it wasn't our best whatever, right? Yeah, let's go with that, Rafik. The first time we met, we didn't have a very strong relationship, right? First time Rafik came, he didn't want to do a video interview. He insisted that he would show up on site, right? And then he showed up. He pulled up in, and he said incredibly outrageous things that were sound like exaggeration. He said, if there's a guest that's trapped in Singaraja, I will drive to that place and I will rescue them. And he told us the story how he did that. And then he said other things that we were like, wow, this guy's really good at bullshitting. He probably can't do any of it, right? Sounds like this nonsense stuff. But Rafik did actually every single thing that he promised, which was absolutely incredible. But that's not the theme of the story. The theme of the story is that first impressions don't necessarily create the relationship either. We've had many days since when you first promised that to today, Rafik. And during that period, you communicate every day with me, right? And we have always a way as a community manager to set the relationship right. Yes, business development, whoever brings in the client might have misrepresented this to them. You can ask anybody who's ever joined the military whether they like the military because of the first person that told them to go in, or did something else along the way change their relationship. Most recruiters will lie. Most military recruiters will lie to you. They'll tell you the military is great. There's all this cool stuff you're going to do. And then when you go there, you realize it sucks, right? It's not so great. But yet somebody can still leave the military after having had, let's say, a misinformed experience in the very beginning and still love the military. Why? It's community, right? Do they still feel part of that community? The community is what you're selling. The community of people where when, let's say, you bring two owners together and they're just so passionate. They're like, all I can think about is how to make my guests happier. Great. We've created a community where you can belong there, right? And when you add more people into that community, you know, then it creates really the right thing. Okay, so you're right, Rafik. First impressions count, but I'm also saying this. I'm also saying the community, you have the daily engagement, you can change that, right? You can set and reset those expectations. Rhonda should have been spoken to, and she should have been notified that things were changed after COVID. But apparently, that message didn't get to her, right? Which brings me to the really important question of how do you actually monitor your community, right? How do you make sure that when you ask a certain message to be delivered, that message has been delivered? How do you make sure that like how do you lead a community when you have like what are the tools that gain you visibility? You have a vision at the top, but by the time you execute it doesn't actually execute the way you expect it to. So that part is tough, right? How do you monitor things? If 10 delegates say, "Hey, please talk to this owner for me," to somebody else, let's say to says Kiki, please tell to this owner in Jogja for me about this particular situation. How will Tendi know that one that has been done, but more importantly, how will Tendi know that the owner understood what Kiki said? Maybe Kiki, yeah, maybe she did it, right? She went and she spent Sunday afternoon talking to the owner. How do we know the owner actually understood? Right? So that is a that is a tricky thing that we need to manage, like monitoring and communicating and getting feedback about our communication from our community. That is something that we struggle with as a root cause of a lot of problems here. Right? That's why we have to go out and meet all our people all the time, because otherwise we're just not sure if they understood it or not. Right? Okay. And community engagement is related to that. Thank you very much, Tendi. Related to what is the best way to engage. Andre's question has already been answered. I put that on the notes. The celebration of monthly events. That part Douglas has already wrote about in the blog. And culture of engagement in the future is a great question. That's about the future, right? So do you Douglas think that more people are going to be online, or what are the way that we're going to engage with the people in the future? That's a great question. Okay. This idea of KPIs is pretty good. Um, KPIs, SLAs. What is the way that you measure success for your community, right? So that we have some goals. And community is one of those things that is very, very vague, right? It feels right, but maybe it's not right. How do you figure it out? Well, are there any numbers? Maybe even should we even use numbers to measure a community's progress? Even more fundamental question. Okay. Um, this is actually a pretty interesting thing. Most of the tools we've created, do they actually solve the community's problem, or do they solve our problem? Maybe people in the community don't use it because it's solving our problem, but it doesn't solve their problem, right? Their problem is I need to know when the guest comes here. Our problem is you call me every time, right? So we need to think about how to maybe make that transition from having a shared problem, a shared common mission, a shared purpose, so that it's not my problem, your problem. It is both our problems, and we work together for this mission. The way I think we run community right now is that they are the masters and we are the servants, right? Like they need something, we run over it and we serve them. They need something, so that's what they understand. We will never have a very good relationship with our community doing that because that's not a healthy relationship, right? It should be more like we're partners on this road together, and we're going to use hospitality innovation to positively transform people, and we're going to lead you on how to do it. And you're going to get the benefits from being positively transformed. That's the vision. And that's the kind of relationship that we would like to have. And that would solve a lot of our problems. All right? So these are some of the questions that I put out. KPIs, fixing the culture, everything. But Douglas is a very, very interesting person. He's probably one of the wisest. Like he's almost like a magician, I figure. Like the things that he does eventually works, and when it works, you wonder, wow, I never thought that was even possible. So that part is pretty exciting. Okay, that's where I wanted to talk about community management today, because I do think from time to time we should really recenter ourselves and talk about our purpose. Yeah? Okay, Rafik, how do you feel about all this? Is this too abstract, or kind of like how are you getting anything out of it that you can apply?
No, it's good. It's not abstract for me. I think it's because we meet with a very influenced person in the world, right? So like Brian Atkin, it's very good. So we need to know. I think he will talk a lot about this one because I think it's from his video and everything. He like to meet people. I think.
I think so.
Yeah. So they will talk a lot, and also we can conclusion. What is the if we already know what is the conclusion of, for example, like my question, I think we don't need to asking anymore. I think that is good. Be good moderators.
Okay, good. All right, I'll go into it and moderate the best I can. If you have any other questions, please put them here. We're starting this new program for HR, which is called Ask Me Anything, which means that I want you guys in your chapter to ask me anything, right? If you have any questions about anything that you don't feel right about, anything that is like a little bit weird, just ask. Put it on the sheet. I will try to answer the questions I can answer. And then if I can't answer it, we'll find somebody who is good, and we'll professionally network, start a masterclass with them, and we'll get them to help us answer these questions that are really hard. Okay? It can be about anything. Like, what should we do with ukulele? Right? Like, that's one of those things. Or, what do we do when this person has been invited 5 times and they don't show up? Right? Or what do we do if we can't trust our teammates to do what we ask them to do? Just any of the hard questions that you figure is not, like whatever. Let's get those out, because I think somebody probably has a good answer for those. And as soon as we start having clarity on what the right answer is, we can start executing much more confidently, right? And we'll do better. Okay, purpose, value, mission. Think about that. Think about who knows besides yourself, and think about, as a member of the community, drive that idea out so that more people know about it. Yeah, that is infrastructure for community management and brand. Okay, have a good one. I'll see everyone at 3 o'clock. Yeah, we finished a little bit early today. And I'll see you guys at 3, and it'll be fun. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.